My name is Amanda Connors. I'm 28, a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm that no one outside of finance would recognize. My life is deliberately quiet. No chaos, no scandals, no damage trailing behind me. Everything I own, I built. From nothing. My degree, my career, my credit, even the table in my kitchen. I earned it all. No handouts, no shortcuts. If you asked my family, though, they'd probably call me cold. Not because I scream, storm out, or treat them cruelly, but because I stopped sweeping up after their disasters. I have an older sister, Erin, 2 years older, though somehow always trailing behind. She can take any mistake and dress it up like misfortune, leaving everyone else to pay the cost. Lose another job? The boss was toxic. Evicted again? The roommates were jealous. Missed another bill? She's just trying her best. And my parents, Carol and Frank, never doubt her. They adjust, excuse, and when they can't fix it themselves, they turn to me. You're stable, Amanda. You're lucky. You can help. That phrase became my inheritance. Help with the car payment. Help with rent. Help with bail. Help, always help. And when I dared to say no, they acted as if I was the one burning bridges. I learned early that my worth wasn't measured by love. It was measured by usefulness. But even usefulness has limits, and they were about to see mine. Sunday dinners in our house followed a ritual. The same casserole, the same table, the same tension disguised as civility. That night I knew something was staged. My mother greeted me with a smile too wide to be genuine. "You look thin, sweetheart. Are you eating enough?" My father barely looked up, muttering, "Hey, kiddo," before retreating into silence. Erin was already at the table, scrolling through her phone, avoiding my eyes like a teenager hiding from the principal. I recognized the pattern. When Mom turned sweet and Dad went mute, it meant they were preparing to tell me something I wouldn't like. We got through the salad. Mom chatting about the weather as if she'd achieved it. Dad topping off his glass, Erin prodding her food with suspicion. Then Mom set her fork down, folded her hands, and put on the practiced smile she reserved for guilt-wrapped requests. "Amanda," she began softly, "we've been talking. Erin's had a hard time lately and, well, she'll be moving in with you for a while." Just like that. No question, no discussion. She said it as if she were offering me cookies, expecting my automatic yes. The table went still, waiting for my protest. My father shifted, bracing for the argument. Erin peeked up, then quickly down. Instead, I smiled. "Of course. If it helps." Erin get back on her feet. "I don't see why not." The silence that followed cut sharp. Mom blinked, unprepared. Dad exhaled, relieved. Erin leaned back, smugness blooming across her face. None of them noticed how quiet I'd gone. How still. They thought I'd caved. What they didn't know, what none of them ever thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks, and I had no intention of letting Erin or anyone else move into a space that no longer existed. I didn't decide to lie overnight. It took years. Years of small betrayals, guilt-soaked favors, and sacrifices erased as soon as they were spent. Years of realizing that in my family, survival came with strings, and being strong really meant being convenient. At 21, Erin's car was repossessed. She sobbed on the phone, swearing this job was different, begging for help. My credit was spotless. Co-signing felt small. 3 weeks later, she quit. Payments stopped. Guess whose credit was ruined? At 23, Mom called in tears. The mortgage overdue, Dad laid off, Erin back under their roof. I wired $2,000 the next morning. At Christmas, Mom handed me a mug that read, "World's Best Daughter." I almost laughed. At 25, Erin got a DUI, the first we knew of. Dad begged me to keep it quiet, said it would destroy the family's reputation. I paid for the lawyer. Erin never thanked me. The next year, when she was arrested again and I refused to pay, Mom called me heartless. You've never understood what it means to love someone enough to worry. Erin's life is harder than yours. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a faucet they could turn on when something broke. A wallet with a heartbeat. I began to pull back. I'll think about it instead of yes, changing subjects, declining politely. They noticed and hated it. One night, sitting in the condo I'd bought and furnished myself, I realized it didn't feel like mine. When they wanted something, it was always ours. My time, my money, my space. So I made a choice. I sold the condo quietly, legally. Moved into a small rental across town. No announcement, no address shared. Not out of cruelty. Not out of spite. Out of preservation. Because sometimes, when your family only remembers your usefulness, the kindest thing you can do is step far enough back to breathe. The texts started Monday. We'll bring Erin's mattress Saturday morning. Dad's packing the boxes Friday night. She's so excited for her own space. I didn't reply. They weren't talking to me. They were talking to the version of me who still opened the door. By Thursday, Mom was messaging daily. You need anything cleaned before she moves in? Erin says she won't be a burden. She's even bringing dishes. That one made me laugh. Erin hadn't washed a dish in years, but I let it all play out. Quietly. Saturday I left early. Coffee. Then a long drive with no destination. I wandered through a farmer's market, stood in the sun too long, ignored 3 missed calls. By the 4th, I answered. It was Mom, but not her soft voice. Her sharp, brittle one. Amanda, what's going on? There's a man here. He says he lives in the condo. Says you don't live here anymore. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel it. The unfamiliar space. The missing certainty. You never told us, she snapped. No, I said evenly. I didn't. There was chaos in the background. Bags rustling, Dad's low growl, Erin saying something muffled. You sold the condo? Mom hissed. Months ago, I replied. I moved out quietly. No one asked where, so I didn't say. For a beat, nothing. I pictured them on that porch, boxes at their feet, realizing their invasion had no castle to storm. Then Dad's voice, cut in. You lied. You said she could move in. I said, if it helps Erin, I don't see why not. I never said where. A pause. A sharp inhale. Then Erin's voice, small, almost childlike. So what? We're just supposed to figure it out now? For a second I almost answered. But I didn't, because they never understood. I hadn't sold the condo to punish them. I did it because I deserve a home that feels like mine. A place where I don't brace for impact every time the door opens. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for people who refuse to change is to stop giving them a place to land. They thought that was the end. It wasn't. By evening, they were standing outside my new door. I knew they'd come. Even while sipping coffee that morning, I knew Mom wouldn't let go. She'd call, dig, or show up just to prove I was still reachable, still theirs. At sunset, the knock came. 3 clipped raps, polite in rhythm but furious, in intent. Through the peephole, Carol, Frank, Erin, and a trunk full of boxes waiting on the curb. I opened the door halfway. So, you found me. Mom's lipstick had faded, her hair pushed back like she'd run her hands through it a dozen times. We tried calling, she said tightly. We didn't think you'd be here. It's my apartment, I said. Dad's tone rose, sharp and disbelieving. But you told us she could move in. And now here we are, unloading all her things, and you're acting like we don't belong. I stayed still. My voice never lifted. I never said she could move into this apartment. What I said was, if it helps Aaron, I don't see why not. That was at the old place. And if you remember, I don't live there anymore. Erin folded her arms, stepping forward. Her face flushed, not with shame, but with fury. This is petty. Amanda, you always walk around like you're better than everyone else, but this is cruel. I tilted my head. You packed your car and drove across the city, assuming you had a place to stay, without checking if it even existed anymore. That's not cruelty. That's entitlement. Her voice cracked. I'm your sister. Yes, I replied flatly. And you've mistaken that for a lifelong housing arrangement. Dad cut between us, his tone firm. Warning. Enough, Amanda. We're not leaving. We've put up with a lot from you. You owe this to your sister. There. It was. The word always lurking, never said aloud. Oh. As if every bill I paid, every hour I worked, every night I lay awake fixing problems I didn't cause, had been secretly recorded in some invisible contract I never signed. I stepped back and picked up my phone. Mom narrowed her eyes. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings. 911, what's your emergency? My voice stayed steady. Yes, I have relatives outside my apartment who refuse to leave. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Aaron's mouth fell open. Frank cursed under his breath. Mom's face crumpled as if I'd slapped her. Amanda, she whispered, almost begging. You'd call the police on your own family? I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Aaron's voice shook with rage. You're going to destroy everything. Do you even know what people will think? What they'll say? Yes, I answered. They'll say I finally stopped, leaving the door unlocked. Mom blinked. Her voice softened to something small. You used to be kind. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed was thick, weighted with every ignored boundary, every bitten tongue, every time I'd said yes when no was burning in my throat. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. A tall officer stepped out, calm but alert, her hand near her belt. Good evening. We had a call about trespassing. That was me, I said. She looked at my parents, at Aaron, at the bag still sitting in the trunk. Ma'am, sir, I need you to leave. This is her residence. You cannot occupy it without permission. This is our daughter, Frank protested. This is family business. And this is her home, the officer replied evenly. Erin's hands trembled. She looked ready to cry, to throw something, maybe both. You'll regret this, Amanda. No, I said quietly. I've regretted almost everything up until now. This is the first thing I don't. The next morning, my phone showed 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest from numbers I didn't recognize. Cousins, family friends, people I hadn't spoken to since graduation. Then the texts started. Why would you do this? To your own sister? Your mom is devastated. Erin's sleeping in her car. Is this really what you wanted? I didn't respond. I scrolled, then I found it. A public Facebook post from my mother. 3 long paragraphs, each punctuated with heartbreak emojis, and a childhood photo of Erin. We raised both our daughters to care for each other, but one has forgotten what that means. Amanda, so successful, so fortunate, turned her back when we needed her most. Erin didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since I was 12, all calling me selfish, cold, ungrateful. Not new, just louder. I stared for a long time. Then, for the first time ever, I wrote back. No hashtags, no dramatics. Just proof. Screenshot. The $2,000 transfer covering their mortgage. Screenshot. My name attached to Erin's car loan, followed by the collections notice. Photo: the lawyer's invoice from her DUI. Timeline: every one time. Favor since I was 21. Receipt: the sale of my condo. And finally, a message Aaron had sent me 2 years ago, calling me a boring robot, because I wouldn't let her crash for a month. I ended with one line: I didn't abandon my family, I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. Then I turned off my phone. Not out of fear, not because I wanted applause, just because I wanted quiet. And for once, I had it. That night, the apartment was still. No shouting in the hallway, no buzzing phone, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the pipes. I brewed chamomile tea not to help me sleep. I didn't need that anymore, but for the ritual. The warmth in both hands, the steam curling upward like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. The phone lit once, Mom. Then again, Aaron. I didn't open the messages. I knew the rhythm. Shock, anger, guilt, pleading. Always in that order. I blocked both numbers, not from spite, not from pride, but because not every door deserves to stay open forever. I stepped out onto the balcony. The cold air wasn't sharp. It was alive. Below, the city moved, cars glowing, a stranger walking a dog in a coat too big for spring. A neighbor waved from 2 floors down. I waved back. It was simple, that gesture. Real, unlike most things I'd done out of obligation. Inside, I turned. Off the lights one by one. Living room, kitchen, hall. No framed photos on the walls, no clutter. Just space. Just quiet. I didn't feel victorious, or bitter, or broken. Just finished. Finished performing. Finished explaining. Finished being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned to breathe. Somewhere, I knew, they were rewriting the story already, casting me as the villain, the ungrateful, daughter, the cold one. Let them. I hadn't disappeared. I'd simply stopped pretending.